Hi everybody and welcome to the Growth Execution podcast. My name is Mel McCallion. I'm the lead consultant at Groshen.co and we are here to talk with Kristjan Byfield. He has created base property solutions and also the Depositary. Hi there Kristjan, how are you?
Hey Mel, yeah, good mate, good to see you.
And you too, buddy, you too. So look, we are absolutely obsessed, as you know, with the idea of growth within businesses, and particularly in this season of the Growth Execution podcast about launching. So I wondered if you could take yourself back to younger Kristjan, and when you first came up with the idea of base, what was it that kind of gave you that impetus to make it a reality?
So, look, I think that came out of a couple of things. One, I was working at the time for a business that had huge potential in terms of there was a lot of things they were getting right. Front end in terms of what customers saw as a sales operation. Back end, horrendous, criminal, literally. Not that we knew that at the time. So there was a couple of things that drove that. So one thing I saw was particularly looking at the letting side of the business that I was working for at the time. Like I said, front end looked great. We had a really good sales team. We were great doing stuff. Big problems in the business, back end, deposits going missing, rent payments not appearing, etc., etc. One of the things that sort of drove the idea of starting base, bearing in mind, I'd only been an agent for about a year. Okay. When we started formulating the idea of setting up base. So two main things drove that. Firstly, I was astonished given the appalling and, like I said, often criminal service that landlords were getting, how incredibly loyal they were.
Okay.
And the thought that sprung to mind at that time was, if this is how loyal a client is when they're treated like crap, and literally the core reason for them being a landlord, i.e. making some money, is taken away from them, what sort of loyalty would you get from a client who you give a great service to? So that for me, I thought was just a really exciting prospect. Mm-hmm. And the other side of it was the luck of at that company meeting my business partner Anne, who you've met, the crazy Belgian.
Yeah. Super lovely.
And we I say we clicked straight away. We didn't click straight away. Anne is very happy to tell people that when we first started working together, she thought I was an arrogant prick. So, so she's very happy to say, yeah, not a massive fan the first month.
Right.
Just thought I was this classic guy full of swagger and full of bravado who was all talk and no trousers. And I've always said to Anne, it isn't arrogance if you deliver. It's only arrogance if you talk the talk and can't walk the walk. And I think what became quite apparent quite quickly was that, I waltzed in and I was like, oh, those are the targets, easy, no problem. Which, made me sound like an absolutely arrogant ass. But
I'm surprised that not the rest of the office was exactly the same boat as her.
Oh, they loved me. My fellow negs absolutely adored me. But true to form, I came in and I did smash those targets. And so it was that different thing. And then what I think Anne and I bonded, because although yes, on the surface it was that salesy bravado of I can do deals. I wasn't a deal at any cost sort of person. I wasn't one of those letting negs who would fob people into thinking umpteen things were going to happen to the property that were never going to happen, and then just move them in with a set of keys and go, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Just that's what you saw. So you've got. So I think what reassured Anne was the fact that there was that balance. There was that, there was that sales drive, but there was still an ethics to it. And equally what I liked with Anne was, the company we worked with, she was the valuer, take on person, and damn, I've still never met anyone who converts instructions like Anne. I mean, her conversion rate back then, and she was doing at least 5 valuations a day for that company. I mean, her conversion rate was like 80 or 90%.
Wow.
And so, you know, it was, so fundamentally it was those two things. That's what drove it. And you know, I just felt like, and on top of that, I felt like tenants got treated like crap. I mean, that was the other thing. At that time, I wasn't aware of a single lettings agency that gave a shit about their tenants. There wasn't. Even if they kind of pretended to on an outward facing way. And 20 years ago, that was unheard of. No one even pretended to care for the tenants. It was like,
Wow.
you know, at best, they were seen as an inconvenience, and at worst, you know, far worse than that. So I think, you know, on top of that, and as a tenant myself at the time, and still now being a tenant 23 years later, having been a 23-year veteran tenant in London still going, you know, that was a really important part of the journey for me. And when Anne and I started talking about, you know, what that could look like, that's what we bonded on, was quality, professionalism, transparency, you know, putting the client first, actually giving a damn about the tenant, and trying to deliver on those things. And yeah, that was the foundation, really.
So that kind of mission really was what kind of got you going, and also then being able to articulate it with Anne enabled you to find a co-founder, essentially. How important, and again, just thinking about people listening who are thinking about launching their own business or recently launched, how important is a co-founder from your point of view?
So for me, really important. I think it depends who you are as a business person. It's really important to understand what you're good and not good at. I'm an ideas person. I'm a sort of big thinker. Like I can't stand still in terms of what we do and how we do it. How we do that and how we go about it, for me, has to constantly evolve. How we operate as a business, trying new things, etc., etc. But then the really important parts of a business, the minutiae, the dotting of the I's, the crossing of the T's, not my strong suit. And Anne is awesome at that. So we've got those skill sets, and you know, and they meet in the middle. Now, look, there's plenty of business owners out there who have a nice sort of blend of those two things, or they go, do you know what? I'm really good at this. I don't need a business partner to do that. I need to hire, you know, an in-house accounts person, a legal consultant who works for me 2 days a week, you know, whatever. There are different approaches to it, but for me, I really like that balance of you know, yeah, that balance that comes from us, you know, pushing back and forward with one another. And Anne's always been very fair with me and my bonkers ideas, in that she will let me pitch anything to her, be that a soaring idea or hang myself with the rope a bit. But you know, she's always really good in that she will listen to any crazy new idea I've got about what we want to do. But she'll put me on the spot. You know, she'll be like, right, well, you know, what if this happens? What if that happens? You know, how much is it going to cost? What do we need to convert to make that sense? You know, make that work? What if we take it on and that doesn't make us a penny in a year? What does that, you know, what does that mean to us? Just sort of those really tough questions that make you ask, is it really worth doing? And
that kind of conversations, right? You know,
and look, I think what it very quickly got me away from is that go-to sales line that that people often use, which is, oh, you only have to do one deal. I've only got to do one deal a month, babes, and we're in the money. I only do one deal a quarter and it pays for itself. How is this not going to do one extra deal a quarter?
Yeah.
And that doesn't float. So yeah, but it's good. I mean, that's a really lazy way to look at things, because yeah, if you base it on fairy tale things, then yeah. So no, she's been really good at making me drill down and ask things. And equally, you know, I've got good fighting my corner. You know, if I do feel quite strongly about something. Whereas probably early days I might have backed down and been a bit like, yeah, okay, cool, right, get it. You know, now I will, if I like I said, if I feel passionate about something, I will fight for it a bit harder. You know, to the point where I'll go, come on, let's give it a try. You know, what's the worst that can happen?
And so for those listening, the key thing is really understanding where your weaknesses are. You know, so if you think, so self-awareness, right? And that's one of the key things in entrepreneurship is do you know yourself well enough that this risk is manageable?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I always liked about going into agency, it's a relatively low risk business in that obviously every business carries risk. But one of the things that got me really excited about it was it's not a trend. Everyone is always going to need a home. So the market will evolve, prices will shift, how we do what we do. That's always going to evolve, and you have to go with that flow. But the bottom line is we're not going to wake up tomorrow and people suddenly have decided they don't need a home anymore, because they're going to sleep in their car. So we haven't got an industry where you could potentially build a business up over months, years, decades, and then suddenly overnight the market disappears. So I think that was always like a core underpinning, and I'm a huge advocate of bootstrapping. Don't spend too much too soon. I'm a huge advocate of that. And it applies to a lot of things. I think it's a funny tangent, but I apply that in all areas. I think a good example is oh God, what's the movie trilogy with Keanu Reeves in?
Matrix.
Yes. So Matrix for me is a perfect example. They made that first movie with 1/10 of the budget that they made the second and third movie. And for me, the first movie mops the floor with the other two.
Correct.
And I think, and I've seen the same. My wife has a theatre company, and it's largely self-funded. They get a little bit of Arts Council funding here and there. But when I see what she's able to create, when the resources, the lower the resources, the more creative she becomes. And I think that's really exciting. I think money actually causes a lot of issues. It makes you lazy. It goes for the quick fix, particularly if it's not your money. It can be very easy to spend. And you can very easily roll out these justifications of, we'll chuck 50 grand at that this year because, we sign up 1,000 clients off it. We're quids in the money. And it's like, that's a big ask, 1,000 clients off a single solution. So, but when it's not coming out of your pocket, it's very easy to go, well, we got 10 million in the bank. What's 50 grand? So I'm a big fan of bootstrapping and being lean in the early stages as long as you can. I think it leads to a really healthy business, and it makes you ask those really important questions.
I think that's right, and it's a good kind of hygiene factor. Is actually right. Is this necessary, or is it a kind of a pipe dream? And when you're thinking about your kind of when you're looking back and the way that you set it up, what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
I think my expectations of how the business would grow, bearing in mind we went for that bootstrap approach. So Anne and I started base with 20 grand, 10 grand each in the pot, and we basically had 3 months to make it work.
Okay.
That basically covered us for about 3 months. And it was quite exciting.
Just pants stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was young. I was 24. I basically had nothing but debts to my name, so I couldn't really go much deeper down that hole. To be fair, Anne was in quite a different position, 7 years older than me, a bit more established, and much more financially secure than I was. So I think, there was definitely a risk on her side, but different things for us to consider at the time. But yeah, I think there's something refreshing about that. If I was going to give myself advice back then, I think probably one of them was I felt this need to sort of fake it to make it at the start.
Okay.
And try and sort of talk ourselves up a bit more than what we were. I don't think that it was necessarily a negative impact on that, but I do feel now there's a lot of kudos in being totally open and transparent. It's scary as hell, and I think maybe I put part of that down to youth of that sort of youthful bravado that you have when you feel invincible at that at your late teens, early 20s.
Oh well.
Yeah. So I think my thing would just be don't feel the need to fake it as much. I would probably say reach out to the industry more. I mean, it's something that now, sort of second half of my career with Base, I've formed some really strong relationships with suppliers and experts and consultants, but also a ton of agents as well. And I think at the start, look, there has been a shift in the last 5 to 10 years in that respect, especially agent to agent. And I think particularly in the last year or two, particularly COVID's driven that even further. It's hyper accelerated everything really. But I think that would be my other thing, is like, just reach out a bit more. I wish I'd spoken to more agents earlier on and listened a little bit more. So yeah, I think that would, those would be my two things, is talk a bit more and just temper your expectations. I mean, I can pretty much remember the business plan that I'd drawn up before we launched. And I think the plan was like, within 5 years, we were going to have 5 offices in London with at least 30 staff. We're now we're about to hit 17 years of operation. We're still 1 office, and we've currently got 5 members of staff. So, I mean, look, the business has evolved. That's for a myriad of different reasons. But I think that would be the other thing, is just to sort of temper your expectations. That could have been possible, but reality being, we would have needed some sort of investor backer to make that a reality, and that's not the route we went. So just be realistic about the approach you're taking and how you're going to leverage that.
Realism and authenticity.
Yeah. Bang on. Well, that you've just brilliantly summarized my last 5 minutes of waffle in 2 words, Mal. Thank you. Oh, and now my headset's trying to even my headset's bored of me talking now, so it's trying to shut me off. There we go. We're back on.
So I also am interested in, again, thinking about those that are looking to launch their businesses at the minute. Where did the name come from? All right, when you started Base, what inspired your name?
Sorry, Mal. It was still trying to cut me off. There we go. I'm properly listening again then. I just had American voice in my ear.
Not me. Where did the name come from?
Base. So really it came from the fact that, for me personally, and this isn't a criticism of other estate agents, but personally, I hate I've got to be really careful that I don't actually say an agent's name now, but it's the Frankenschleps, or whatever it is. I've never been a fan of that, let's take our names, or let's put together our first names to make an agency. It just never sat well with me. So like I said, our focus at the time wasn't on tech, but we did see ourselves as really trying to do something different in terms of the service we were giving our landlords, and especially our tenants. So we wanted to sort of come up with something a bit more unique. So Base really came out of, what's a sort of casual or slang term for where we live that's a little bit more relaxed, and where are you based? It sort of came out of that. And then when we started, I had a real aversion about calling ourselves estate agents or calling ourselves letting agents. And again, I think it's because I very much agreed at the time with the public perception of our industry, which was crap service, anything to make a buck sort of thing. And so we tried to steer away from that, and hence why we called ourselves property specialists rather than letting agents. I think in hindsight, again, that was a bit of a silly move, because when you just think about really core, there was a value to it in that you can understand that logic, but one of the unforeseen things about that is guess what people search for: letting agents or estate agents. Nobody goes searching for a property specialist. So whilst it was a lovely name,
yes,
we sort of slightly shot ourselves in the foot in that respect.
You would have to work hard to overcome that slight detriment, right? And
and on our last point of what would I say to myself now, I would probably go back and say, well, no, call yourself a letting agent, and wear that badge with honor, but just be open about the fact that you're trying to change what a letting agent is perceived as and what is expected of a letting agent. So that's,
It's really great advice, because when one goes in and creates a business, and you can put any kind of name on it, right? And I obviously remember, when we set up Zoopla back in the day, that was a name that didn't mean anything until you put
and that was bold, right? Purple
brand values around it. Yeah, exactly. So, but once you put your brand values around it, you can almost do anything. But
yeah,
have a bit of thought around, right? You need to think about the search engine optimization side. You think about what people are going to search for, and it needs to be something that's, at the very least, people are going to be able to discover as well. I'm interested as well in whether you had any sort of inspiration. Is there somebody that you looked up to and you thought, you know what, that's the kind of business we want to drive toward?
You know what, this is going to sound really maybe a little bit arrogant, but no, I've not. And that falls into all things. I like all types of sport, but I'm not mad about any one sport, and I equally don't idolize any key sports heroes. I admire people who achieve stuff. Likewise, in business, there are things I see people do, but I don't necessarily aspire to be like them. I tend to draw individual things from what people do rather than say that's someone I aspire to replicate or be like or whatever. And I think part of that comes from, we all have our own life journey. We all have, who our family is, what our financial background is, who our contacts are, how easy it is to get traction in the corporate marketplace, etc. And I think it can be a bit dangerous to idolize people too much. Because one thing I've learned over the last few years is that, there's been quite a lot of people and brands where I've been like, oh wow, often nothing to do with property, like, oh, that's a really cool brand, and oh my god, they've grown that so fast, and Jesus, what an incredible entrepreneur. And then I go and start digging into their background, and it turns out that, daddy is a bajillionaire and lent them 30 million quid to get the business off the ground. And it's like, oh right, that's how they grew a really cool business really fast, because they've lost 20 million quid.
From the beginning, about actually, if you've got loads of money, you can waste loads of it, and in the end, you're going to make something that actually works.
So I think for me, it's less about looking at an individual. I get much more excited about sort of aspirations that people have. I'm a big fan of, if you see something you like, what's the word? Replication is the biggest form of flattery, and I've always been very open about that. I've always said with our agency career, anything that we do as an agency, we're very open about. We put a lot of content out there about. I have absolutely no issue with another agent, be that down the road or halfway across the country, going, hey, that's awesome. We're going to do that. Great, do it. I'm not going to be on the phone the next day going, what are you doing? I might be on the phone the next day going, do you guys need any help getting that set up? Do you want some advice? And so I think, I'm very happy for it to happen that way, and equally draw inspiration from what other agents do. You can't replicate everything every good agent does. It's just not possible. You're going to have to find that avenue that you go down. But generally, I just think always be learning, whatever that means. Some people love to read business books and stuff like that. That's not my bag. I love just drilling down into businesses. I love just going online and finding stuff and, really looking at the minutiae of how they do stuff and finding those little, like, oh, that's a really cool approach to take to that. Or, or if it is a leader, what is it about that leading style that I aspire to? And it would be more sort of a personality trait than
Praise God. Brilliant. And sort of final question on this particular, what is this for you the kind of secret to a great launch? If you were to kind of go to somebody's come to you and said, right, I'm thinking about launching a business, what would be the thing that you
preparation every single time. So and I can talk about this from the two different perspectives, obviously, of the two businesses. So with Base, as I said before, we, between Anne and I, we put 20 grand in, so 10 grand each. We had 3 months to make it work. Now, if we just flung open our doors with nothing in place, we never would have made it through those 3 months, because every time we did a deal, we'd have been like, oh, okay, what are we doing for a tenancy agreement, and how are we doing this? And before we launched Base, I spent, I mean, it was longer than anticipated. It was meant to be 2 or 3 months. We had a nightmare finding premises, so it ended up being 6 months. But before we opened, I had literally mapped out every document and every process in our company. So I'd created everything from mock-up invoices and account statements to tenancy agreements, Section 21 notices, standing order mandates, you name it. All of those documents were ready to go. Introduction templates, tenant letters, you name it, was there. I'd given a lot of thought as to how we legitimately ran our accounts with the business, because, as you all know, Mal, lettings is an absolute beast. We handle so much money that is not ours. You have to be careful. And so, we'd mapped out from the start. We were like, right, okay, we're going to need a deposit account. We're going to need a rent collection account. We're going to need a current account. We're going to want a VAT account. We're going to need to manage work. So we're going to need at least one sort of works account. We actually set up 2, but all that stuff, that months of preparation, meant the moment that we opened our door, we knew what we were doing. It was like, right, we've done a deal, great. Out goes the offer email, out goes the holding deposit agreement. That comes in. Now we go into this, dun, 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 and that was it. And now talking about the depository, it's creating a quality product that is easy and intuitive to use for your main everyday user, depending what sort of product you're delivering. But most products will be aimed at agents, and it'll be agents paying. So how do you make that product as intuitive and easy to use as possible? Because make no mistake, if you don't, you better have a hell of a lot of resources for training and customer support. That costs a lot of money. To do that right, that's a lot of human resource. So do you want to be spending 300 grand a year on a support team? Or do you want to take an extra 6 months and spend an extra 50 to 100 grand refining your product so it just works?
And also the other side of that is the references you get as well, right? And people talking about saying this is so easy and so amazing versus, I've had to phone them up again.
So we went to our dev team, and the brief I gave them from a design perspective was that I wanted to build a platform that, from an agent's perspective, an agent using our platform should be able to walk out the front door of their office, stop a complete stranger in the street, bring them and sit them down in front of their computer, and that person, who is unknown to the agency, unknown to the industry, should be able to take a tenancy from notice to refund in a completely compliant and legitimate way, without any experience, any knowledge, and any training. And that was the brief we gave them from day dot. And that was it. And we keep coming back. We're constantly coming back to that. Whenever we get an email, be it an agent or a consumer going, oh, I'm not sure what to do here, the support really isn't going, oh, you click this. The support question to yourself is, why the hell wasn't it obvious to them to click that? Because if it's not obvious to them, we're currently looking after about 100 branches, thereabouts. Our objective is to hit somewhere around 500 by year end. If the 100 branches is generating 20 inquiries a month, that scale up in theory would be 100 inquiries a month. So better to resolve that now and eliminate that request before you start scaling too much and your problems are massively amplified 10 or even 100-fold.
Can agree more. And the really brilliant thing about that is you've got this kind of avatar of the person that is your customer, that person, and by having that kind of well designed or well understood person as your customer, all of the other decisions fall off the back of that. I think that's amazing.
Look, and in tech, it was scary taking the time to build the right product. I mean, I think about a year in, I was like, yeah, we're about to launch. 3 years later, we actually launched. You know, it was the slowest drip launch campaign ever. I mean, people got so sick and tired of meeting me at events and going, "Is it ready?" I'd be like, "Yeah, next month. I think we're definitely round the corner now."
You're optimistic at work, right there.
Oh Jesus, yeah, and yeah, but having gone through our first year, all of those decisions have been validated. You know, I mean, we ended up spending 8 times what we originally planned to spend building the platform. Now, there's 2 stories out of that. Number one, what we thought we were going to spend on the platform was absolute bollocks. We were never going to deliver our product for our original estimate. But look, even at 8 times that spend, we've still delivered a product for probably a fifth, if not, you know, somewhere at least a third, if not a fourth or a quarter or a fifth of what a lot of people would have spent building our product. So, you know, that has its own merits. But
and what you've built and the way that it has been adopted is testament to the fact that it was
yeah, but it was really scary because we were always very open about it. You'll probably remember we went to quite a few trade shows and had little stands. You know, we were the worst kept secret in the industry intentionally, which was also really scary because everyone tells you in tech, "Oh, don't tell anyone about your product till you launch because they'll steal your idea." You know, and the amount of people who kept on going to me, "Just launch it. You know, don't worry about the bugs. Don't worry about the issues. Just launch it. You know, you just need to and just learn on the journey." This whole MVP fail fast sort of mindset, which look, it absolutely has its place in certain things. It would have been an absolute frigging disaster for us to do it. You know, when I look at the quality of product that we launched versus the quality of product that we had 2 years before that, oh my God. I mean, the work it would have taken to get the clients on board, the amount of support we would have had to give to those clients, I think it would have killed the business.
Yeah, because it's very interesting, and that comes down to very much sort of personality as well, doesn't it? Because you want to make sure that this qualitative thing is baked into it right from the word go.
Yeah,
you don't want anybody to ever have had an experience that was less than optimal, and that involves spending money and taking time. Whereas others, and you know, like you say, there's a place for this as well. We'll just go right. Let's get out as quick as we can.
And look, it's that old adage. I love that classic saying: I can do it fast, I can do it well, and I can do it cheap. Pick 2.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do all 3.
And we did it well and cheap for tech. So the one thing that wasn't going to bloody happen was fast. You know, and that was what we had to face. We made a very conscious decision to self-fund it. We've not borrowed any money. We've taken cash that we've got in our agency business and we've plowed that into it. We have, as you can imagine, over the last 4 or 5 years, had God knows how many offers of funding and buyouts and this, that, and the other. And, you know, God, it was tempting at times. It really was, when someone's offering you a sizable 7-figure sum and it's like, oh, but it was, you know, you had to just be brave and go, hold on a minute. Someone thinks this is worth a decent 7-figure sum and we've not even launched yet. Yeah. So we've got to be onto something. There's got to be something for that, you know? And so I think those things were at times confusing and scary and exciting, but also, you know, when you took that minute just to step back and sort of look at it more objectively, it was like, okay, let's see it for what it is. And it doesn't mean they're right, because let's also be honest that there's a lot of money sloshing around and they know 1 in 10 of products they back is going to work. But there is something in there that's made someone go, yeah, I'll chuck a ton of money at that.
Brilliant. And I'm very mindful. Thank you so much for your time today. I just wanted to qualify or just kind of finish up on a couple of things. What is your end game? So you've launched, you've been running the base for 17 years, Depositary for origination of idea for a few years. Where does this go, Kristjan?
Good question. Don't honestly know. On one side, I have got my wife, who I've been with for 21 years now. And I have to say, she is getting a little bit long in the tooth with Mr. Work 6 days a week. You know, the entrepreneur lifestyle that she thought meant jet setting and swanky holidays in Mauritius 3 times a year has not yet materialized. So I'm obviously juggling on that side. This, like, come on, you've worked hard for nearly 20 years. When do we get to sort of have the party side of that? And you know, my wife is at that point in her life where basically all she wants to do is go and be a glorified hippie. She basically just wants to go traveling around Europe and live on a self-sufficient farm somewhere in the middle of the English countryside, which I'm fundamentally not opposed to, although I'm equal measure sort of excited about the idea and equally terrified that about a week or 2 weeks into it, I'll be like, I'm bored. I'm really bored. I need to go back. I'm bored. So yeah, look, I don't think too much about the end game. I think I've always just found business as a whole quite interesting, and fundamentally it's not money that motivates me. I just enjoy the journey of creating a business and creating a brand, and actually really the community that comes around that. I've really loved building friendships and relationships with, you know, with people like yourself and agents, and you know, so I think, you know, with agency, it surprised me. I've actually ended up liking being an agent a lot more than I thought I would. Because I was good at the sales bit at the start. We started it, but as I said earlier, I didn't want to be seen as an estate agent or a letting agent. But actually now I'm fucking proud to be an estate agent and a letting agent. And particularly when I look at what a lot of companies have done over the last 12 months, I think our industry really, really fucking stepped up.
Just a very quick shout.
What a soppy bastard! I'm getting teary-eyed just talking about it.
Mate, no, and you did. You were just a really important point for those listening. You were instrumental in setting up Agents Here to Help, which was, you know, looking out for people who were worried about property and worried about what was going to happen in the market. And that was an amazing go-to resource. So congratulations on that. And you brought together a lot of people within the industry, a lot of agents who, you know, up to that point perhaps have been competitive rather than collaborative.
Yeah, and I think everyone was a little bit lost and scared at that time. I think it gave people something a little bit to focus on. You know, and look, people like you, Mel, jumping on board with that made that a possibility, because an idea is the easy bit. You know, having people like yourself and Debbie and Jane and Carla who jumped onto that and were like, yeah, you know, we're going to set up work groups. I mean, you were amazing, so registering domains and setting up social media pages, and let's do this. And you need people like that. Yeah, but you need people like that. But so look, sorry, I've waffled off. So end game, who knows? You know, with Base, we're pretty happy. We're very proud of the business that we've built. We run an incredibly low risk business in that we spend very little actually trying to on marketing the business as itself. You know, obviously we promote our clients' listings, but we grow organically at around 10 to 15% a year through referral and recommendation. And we're very happy with that. We're quite happy just to let that business tick over. And look, who knows? At some point, we'll probably make an exit on that. I have no preset thing on that. Equally, we're getting to a point where, you know, we're nearing that point where if we wanted to, we could potentially take quite a large step back, and run the business more at arm's length and still earn an all right salary. So there's a couple of options there.
In the middle of the countryside somewhere.
Yeah, we'll sort of see what happens. With the Depositary, our sort of ambitions are much bigger, in terms of, you know, like, as I talked about, you know, we spent 4 years building this product. As I said, sort of around the time we launched, we had a couple of very tasty offers for the business, or for the large chunk of the business. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. I've just spent 4 years of my own money. Like, yes, what you're offering is a good return on the money I've spent, but not on 4 years and not on what we've built. So, and the last year has validated a lot of those points, the clients we've worked with. So I'm just really excited about where we're going. We've literally just rolled out a new integration today with TDS Custodial. We've got another integration rolling out next week. So, in just over our first year, we've rolled out 6 major partner integrations. I know companies that have been going 6 years that barely have one partner integration. So I'm very proud of that and what we're embracing in that. I'm a big advocate of raising the profile of letting agents within the public domain, but I'm also a huge advocate, as I've said before, about the tenant journey. Transparency, professionalism, fairness, compliance within the framework, and equally, empowering landlords for that. So, yes, it's a business, but I'm genuinely hoping to, in the next sort of 3 to 4 years, drive a seismic shift in the end of tenancy process, deposit deductions and reconciliations, and the tenant and landlord and agent experience and journey through that. And we're already starting to see that. We've already, in our first year, the average deposit refund nationally is 21 days. We're already hitting 17 days. With the new partner integrations we've rolled out, we're really hoping to get that under 14 days this year. So hopefully a third faster than the industry standard. And our big time goal is to get that into single digits. We want to get that under 10 days. And also in terms of just making that process transparency, we're trying to remove the emotion, we're trying to make it open and transparent and professional and evidenced, and that is what our system facilitates. And again, that process has been validated. Pulling out our stats from last year, over 70% of every proposed deduction made in our platform, and that's on over 2,000 tenancies, over 70% of the proposed deductions were accepted by the tenants without any form of renegotiation. Wow. Because it's just a factual, and what we're getting from the agents is tenants understand what's going on now. When they're presented with a deduction, it's not that patronizing, like, oh, it was so disappointing to see how you returned the property. All right, mate, you're not my dad. If I haven't done what I contractually should have, just set out fairly and evident what I owe and why, and let's get this sorted. But don't tell me you're disappointed in me, because you want to go down that avenue, I'll tell you what I'm disappointed about in you. So, that's what I want to see. I want to see us realize those ambitions. So, over the next sort of 2 to 3 years, I'm hopeful that we can capture somewhere in the region of about 25% of the UK residential lettings market on a long-term AST basis. Anything more than that would be amazing. Obviously, I'd love to have more than that. But if we can be involved in 1 in 4 agency transactions, which you've got to think is about 500,000 tenancies, give or take. If we work on 4 million properties, about 2 million of those use agents. So if we work on that, we want to be hitting about 500,000 transactions within the next 3 to 4 years. And what that will also give us is the ability to inform people. What we want to be able to do once we start getting to that big data stage is we really want to be able to help educate and inform all of our user groups. So we want to go back to agents and go, hey, do you know that actually if you provide 1 more or maybe even 1 less piece of evidence on a proposal, you're twice as likely to have it agreed without deduction? Or, do you know that if you propose more than 5 deductions, the likelihood, you're 10 times more likely for it to end up in a dispute. So, try to work, whatever it is, these, and I will make very clear, these are not actual statistics now. I'm hypothesizing about them.
Yes.
But what I really want to be able to do is give that data, give that insight, and be able to use that to the benefit of all. How do agents and landlords make that process work better? How do tenants learn from that? Are there things they're happy about, and are there things they're unhappy about? And what gets disputed, and what is the outcome of those, and what do we learn from that? What is an obvious area of ignorance, be that a landlord or agent being over egregious about what they think they're entitled to, or a tenant being slightly ignorant or ill-informed about their responsibilities? Really just to help sort of systemize and bring transparency and professionalism and fairness to the space, and hopefully have a bit of fun and make a bit of money along the way. I think is really where we're going with that. And then, if we achieve that, who knows? Let's see what's next. Is it, is there an exit? Do we build another product? Do we partner with someone? Who knows? I mean, there's umpteen variables. There was an interesting, on one of the estate agent groups, I can't remember if it was LinkedIn or Facebook the other day, someone put a really open question of, if someone made you an offer for your business, would you sell now? And rightfully, most of the responses were like, well, what's the frigging offer? Because if it's £1,000, they can stick it up to the bum. But if it's 100 million quid and I've got a £500,000 turnover business, then yes, absolutely, I will do. So it's all about context. I think never say never. Rajiv at Fixlow gave me a very interesting tip many moons ago, back at the start of my journey with the Depositary. And he said, one piece of advice I would give you, he said, is figure out what is your get out number. Okay. What is the number where you would go, yeah, here you go. That is the amount I need to fulfill every possible ambition I have on what's next in my life journey. He said, figure out that number, write it on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope on your bookshelf, or, put it in a drawer in your desk or somewhere that you're going to be able to find it. And he said, if you can't remember what that figure is, anytime you get approached, open that envelope.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a great piece of advice, and thank you.
It's a really good piece of advice, which he has admitted he hasn't actually managed to follow himself, but I really like it. I really like it, because you also have to be careful that you don't keep chasing. A business can always be bigger. You can always have more clients. You can always make more turnover, more money. Is that going to make you more happy? For me, it's the happiness that rides above all else.
That is a brilliant thing to end on. Thank you so much for it. I think those guys who are setting up, that is a really, really good discipline to kind of think around. Mate, it's been great, Kristjan. Thank you so much. We always ask, and although it's a slightly different question during lockdown, what are you doing straight after this?
What am I doing straight after this? Probably jumping onto another Zoom call, I imagine.
Very still.
The land of Zoom. Oh, well, we've just rolled out our TDS custodial integration today. So we rolled it out last night. We had to migrate our clients, and we've got sort of press releases today, tomorrow going out. So, really sort of getting the news out about that, bedding that in, training our existing users and raising their awareness about it. And then really probably next week, we're going to really start pushing into the sales thing of hitting the phones and talking to agents, providing we don't get put into a strict lockdown in the next sort of 48 hours.
Yeah, big hope for that, mate. Very much. So listen, Kristjan, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Kristjan,
mate, thank you for your time. Love what you do.
Genuine pleasure, base property specialist, and also the Depositary. Do check out the website, go and see what he's up to. So it's amazing stuff. So thanks once again, Kristjan. We'll catch up again soon.
Love you, buddy. Have a good one.